All right, so I want to introduce Mr. Duncan Macduf. He's going to do the talk for the lunch symposium this afternoon. He's a volunteer and a board member of the Netas, which is the neuroendocrine tumour support of South Africa. And he's got a background in program management and strategy enablement, and is a part-time chief of staff for medium-sized business consulting. He enjoys bringing his background of business into the Netas with the strategy and development of patient advocacy and support. Duncan, thank you very much for giving us this talk, and we look very forward to hearing what you have to say. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Marguerite. My name is Duncan Macduf. Thank you for the opportunity to bring the voice of the patient to the conference today. I've prepared a few slides and welcome any questions and discussions at the end of the talk. My story is a deeply personal one, and this is important because behind every diagnosis is a unique individual with hopes, fears, and dreams. I invite you today to join me on my journey of living with NETs, to provide insights into the human condition, the emotional and psychological impact of living with this disease. And I can only speak from my own experience, and aligned to the Congress theme of going back to our roots, I want to bring emotions and feelings into the room this afternoon. Matters of the heart. I will shed light on some of the holistic challenges patients face, beyond just the medical aspects. I will also introduce you to Netas. I want to raise awareness for this invaluable patient support group, and I strongly encourage you to introduce all your NETs patients to our growing community. There are a bunch of flyers which we've placed around the room. Please feel free to take them and hand them out to your patients. On the 5th of February 2 years ago, I received an initial diagnosis from a gastroenterologist. With that diagnosis came an undesirable label. I'm now working hard not to be defined by that label. You have cancer. Those 3 words, my life changed forever. Armed with heavy sedatives, we headed home. The car trip was surreal, like a confusing, disjointed dream. I made a commitment to myself to face whatever lay ahead with grace and dignity, to make it easier for my family, the ones that would be left behind. A battery of tests, including a gallium and FDG scan, confirmed the diagnosis: neuroendocrine tumor of the pancreas, metastasized to the liver, stage 4, somewhere between grade 2 and 3. But these words were lost at me at that time. In the days, weeks, and months that followed, I drowned in a tsunami of medical jargon, my mind unable to comprehend this new foreign language and the interpretation of medical terms such as avid, systemic, progression, dedifferentiated. Understanding the diagnosis and the rapid learning curve that followed was totally overwhelming. But let's take a step back for a moment to the start of the journey. The path to diagnosis began 18 months earlier. And I'm sharing this detail with you as an example of what some of your patients might have been through by the time they get to see you for diagnostic scans or treatment. Driving back from Hermanus one Sunday, I had a chronic heartburn and an escalating, blooming, and then stabbing pain in my chest. On my GP's advice, we went straight to the A&E at Vincent Pallotti for an ECG. My heart was fine, but I was given a protein pump inhibitor and advised to see a gastroenterologist if things had not improved after a few weeks. A month later, I saw a gastroenterologist. The scope picked up nothing other than H. pylori, and I was given a course of triple antibiotics. 2 months later, with symptoms not improving, and the week before we went into hard lockdown, I had a second course of triple antibiotics. During the early days of COVID, I went down an H. pylori rabbit hole. I was online. I sent a stool sample to Denmark for analysis. And after receiving dietary advice from a functional practitioner in the UK For 6 months, I made radical changes to my eating plan, following a FODMAP diet: no meat, dairy, gluten, sugar, or alcohol. Not much to eat if you cut out all those food groups. I was meticulously recording everything I ate and how I was feeling on this app on my phone. Food groups were slowly reintroduced to try and understand the source of my intolerance. Nothing made a difference. I tracked my daily bowel movements. The diarrhea, fatigue, and brain fog continued. I was going to the toilet mid-meal, every meal, with trips to the loo 8 to 10 times a day. A further 6 months of trying various homeopathic remedies to try and sort out my IBS and gut issues. I was still not getting better. Actually, I was getting worse. Dropping weight, feeling bloated, and struggling with the various generic symptoms: fatigue, stress, and anxiety. This was compounded by the fact that we were in the middle of an epidemic. It felt like the entire world was confused, stressed, and fatigued. It was time for a second opinion. When the gastroenterologist did a physical examination, he was immediately concerned. A quick ultrasound confirmed his fears. The next day, I had a CT scan, and I recall seeing what I thought was pity on the eyes of the radiologist, her bedside manner decidedly different post the scan. She had seen the lesions, another new word. She knew what was coming. I had no idea, but was now filled with a growing sense of dread. The psychological impact of a cancer diagnosis is enormous. Layers of complexity to unravel and understand. So many big questions, so few answers. Drifting in a sea of confusion, grasping for any kind of certainty, I was consumed by anxiety and fear. Facing the reality of death was hugely confronting, terrifying, and overwhelmingly sad. Floods of uncontrollable tears. Further scans, tests, and biopsies confirmed systemic disease. My swollen liver putting pressure on the rest of my organs, explaining the abdominal bloat. My chromogranin A was at 12,600. I was hanging on by a thread, and when I looked in the mirror, the dull eyes of someone who was dying looked back at me. The thought of leaving my wife Terry and my 2 young girls behind, Riley and Frankie, is still the hardest part. Initially, I struggled with my own psychological challenges, whilst also trying to support Terry as we navigated our new reality. Our paths inextricably linked together, but with different ultimate destinations. We decided to be honest with our girls and communicate to them at a level that is age-appropriate. Cancer and age-appropriate. How is that even possible? How do you talk to 5-year-old Frankie and 7-year-old Riley about cancer? How do you explain something that even to this day I do not fully understand? We used the analogy of a tennis ball and a netball to describe the difference between mom and dad's liver. I don't think they understood. All this happening at the height of COVID. The girls were convinced they would catch my cancer. Everything in their world was super contagious. And somewhere in this tapestry of complexity, there was also a sense of relief, in that I now had an explanation for the myriad of generic symptoms that I've been struggling with for the last 18 months. Fatigue, chronic diarrhea, cramps, night sweats, brain fog, all now accounted for. Ironically, that unwanted cancer label was also the catalyst for getting some semblance of control, starting with radical acceptance and then taking responsibility for managing the next steps. And I'm acutely aware that in many respects, I'm actually very lucky. You heard that correctly, very lucky. My path to diagnosis took 18 months. The average in the UK and the USA is 48 and 52 months respectively. And this is based on a scan, a program that was completed by Inca in 2020. Unfortunately, there's no data available for Africa. I've been supported by a village of friends and family. People have come into my life at various points who have helped me navigate whatever challenge was present at that time. I have a very close friend with a medical background who helped navigate the medical complexity and understanding the diagnosis and treatment plan. He helped me manage the overwhelming number of miracle cures and quick fixes that poured in daily. We spoke every day for 8 months. Another special friend gently facilitated a thresholding process, the start of a deep personal transformation that continues to this day. I want to acknowledge all the people that have helped me in my time of need. I have medical aid and access to world-class treatment with input from a multidisciplinary team, all ably managed by my oncologist, Dr. Jill Harris. Dr. Marguerite Morkel, Dr. Maxine Fisher, Ron Bester in the audience today. This is my nuclear SWAT team. These guys are the best. Dr. Alex Durator and his capable team at Numeri assisting with all the scans. This standard of care is not available to most people in this country. Too many people with NETs are not diagnosed timelessly, if diagnosed at all. And then treatment options are prohibitively costly. This is a very real and complex challenge for our healthcare system. Numerous problems surround both the diagnosis and treatment of NETs, and these are generally well documented. Some of the more important challenges include late-stage presentation of NET-stage patients, the accurate localization of the primary tumor, misleading and unreliable chromogranin A levels, differences in tumor biology between the primary tumor and its metastatic deposits, leading to Ki-67 values that are not always representative of the entire disease burden. Tumor behavior can also change, leading to a loss of somatostatin receptor expression or dedifferentiation. NETs are a complex disease to treat and manage. Being relatively uncommon and generally not widely known about or understood by general healthcare practitioners. A diagnosis is often so close, but also just out of reach. This Congress is all about deep science and nuclear medicine. And because of the work that you do and the treatments that are available, I am here today. I have personally benefited from significant developments in nuclear medicine, from scans to theranostics and PRRT. I'm grateful for the work that you all do. Given the severity of the diagnosis, we decided to start PRRT and chemo regime of capecitabine and temozolomide as soon as possible. The uptake of lutetium in the first cycle was significant, and it required that I spend 6 days in hospital before radiation levels dropped to acceptable levels to return home. Such significant uptake was unexpected, and mentally I had not prepared for a longer stay. The first cycle was definitely the hardest in terms of inflammation, nausea, and pain. I believe that carefully managing expectations is key to navigating cancer treatment. Everyone has a different approach, and my strategy in the early days was to deploy what has now become known as the Macduf low bar of expectation. Basically, this approach involves considering all possible outcomes ahead of any treatment or procedure, so that should the worst case materialize, it is not entirely unexpected and one is not caught off guard. Essentially, the bar is so low, it's on the ground and therefore impossible to trip over. And don't get me wrong, this is not about giving up hope, but rather being prepared and also having a brutally realistic outlook. Invariably, things turn out better than expected. This model continues to serve me well. We explored surgery options, but the Whipple and liver transplant were both discounted after a biopsy of the most aggressive tumor confirmed a Ki-67 of higher than 70%. As an alternative, in October last year, I underwent a transarterial chemoembolization, or TACE procedure. Although ultimately very successful in eliminating the tumor that was not responding to the PRRT, I experienced severe TACE syndrome and spent 3 weeks in hospital battling fever, pain, and nausea. With neutrophils down to 0.3, I had severe neutropenia and was incredibly vulnerable to infection. Despite the symptoms pointing towards an infection, we never really got to the bottom of the severe side effects. Physically, I deteriorated quickly, and mentally, I was fragile. Not even the trusty low bar of expectation had prepared me for this. In my vulnerable state, I had a glimpse into the future, understanding that as the end approaches, there will be choices on how the final journey plays out. I'm now actively preparing for the end of my life, deepening my spiritual beliefs and practices, accepting the impermanence of everything, letting go of fear and anxiety, the trappings of a grasping mind. Although challenging, this inner work has been transformational and a life-changing experience. Learning how to die is teaching me how to live, truly appreciating every day and trying to be present in the moment as much as possible. All still work in progress, but accepting the reality of my circumstances and reframing what it means to heal and have hope. Life goes on, and lunchboxes have to be made. Apart from medical treatments, patients need holistic support in managing physical and emotional symptoms, coping with emotional challenges, and adapting to lifestyle changes. Support groups play a crucial role in this aspect of the patient journey. And with this in mind, I would like to introduce you to Netas. Netas was founded in 2020 to improve outcomes for patients with NETs. The organization was founded when the wife of Professor Pierre de Villiers was diagnosed with NETs. At the time, credible information was hard to find, and there was no patient support available. Prof. de Villiers teamed up with a friend and oncology social worker, Linda Greef, and Dr. Steyn to form Netas. When Dr. Steyn immigrated to New Zealand, Dr. Marguerite Morkel stepped into the breach and has been making a big impact ever since. I first came across Netas 6 months after my diagnosis. It was such a relief to find credible NETs information that had been vetted by a medical committee. But the biggest impact for me was meeting other patients with NETs. At my first online meeting, I met someone who had been living with NETs for 10 years. This was unbelievable. A real story from a real person. I was inspired by the possibility. During a meeting with Linda Greef, it was clear that I wanted to help others on their journey with NETs, particularly those who might not have had the same level of support that I was fortunate to receive. I'm now a patient volunteer and also sit on the board. I represent the patient group and enjoy using my business skills to help grow the organization. We have regular patient support meetings. These online meetings provide access to expert information on defined topics. Guest speakers provide updates on medical developments, and it's a forum for patients to ask topic-related questions. If anyone in this audience is open to speaking to us, I would love to hear from you. There is also an active WhatsApp group, an informal platform to disseminate information. We use this for peer-to-peer support, where patients can ask questions and get feedback. It has been very encouraging to see how this community is growing and evolving as we support each other on our respective journeys. One of the directors, Linda Greef, is a registered oncology and palliative care social worker. Linda offers one-on-one counseling sessions, and as a cancer survivor, she is also a fierce cancer advocate. She has deep experience counseling individuals and their family, from initial diagnosis to treatment, palliative care, and bereavement. Linda also put together this workbook called The Little Yellow House for families touched by cancer. This is the framework that I needed to talk to Riley and Frankie about cancer. The tools are out there. We just need to get them into the hands of the patients. Netas also has a medical advisory committee to provide expert input on medical matters. At Netas, we are very grateful to our primary sponsors. Sorry, I'm not sure why it's not moving forward. There we go. We are very grateful to our primary sponsors. AOSIS and Dr. H.R. Morkel, Inc. Funding from these two organizations covers our basic operational and admin costs. We are also supported by small financial donations, private donations, but we need more sponsors. With additional funding, we can make more of a difference in the lives of Nets patients and their families. With additional funding, we can improve patient support and care, enhance our existing support programs, and enhance our existing support programs, and we want to introduce a buddy program, pairing up patients with the same Nets diagnosis to meet the unique needs of each individual, and find innovative ways to reach and support patients in the state healthcare system. With additional funding, we can increase awareness. By creating marketing materials and engaging in awareness campaigns, we can educate the public and medical community about the importance of early diagnosis and the appropriate management of Nets. With additional funding, we can extend our reach, expand our operations, and establish additional support and resources across South Africa, providing vital assistance to more patients in need. If you have any idea with regards to fundings or possible contacts in your networks that we could approach, please reach out to me, either after this talk or via email. I'd love to hear from you. Netas is an associate member of the International Neuroendocrine Cancer Alliance, or INCA. INCA is a global organization representing 33 patient advocacy and research groups from 26 countries around the world. INCA's vision is a world where all patients with Nets get a timely diagnosis, optimal treatment, support and care, and ultimately a cure. Through our association, we are leveraging many of the great resources INCA provides, equipping our patients with empowering information, access to clinical trials, and evidence-based advocacy toolkits. And together with our colleagues in Kenya, we have ambitious plans to build a footprint of Net support in Africa. Things have shifted in recent weeks. On the 1st of August, I had my 7th cycle of PRRT. Bright and cheerful pictures from Riley and Frankie kept me company in hospital, as they always do. The transfusion and treatment went well. It was smooth, and other than some fatigue and a little bit of delayed pain, the side effects were well tolerated. Last week I had an FDG scan. These bright colors were not well received. The top right image is last week's scan compared to last December, bottom right. There are 3 hepatic lesions demonstrating moderate to intense FDG uptake, which suggests dedifferentiation. There's that word again. Next week, gallium and MRI scans will hopefully paint a more complete picture. We will try and biopsy at least one of these tumors to understand if we are now possibly dealing with carcinoma. And then chemo starts again. Although not unexpected, this progression has caught me slightly off guard. And with it, the fear, uncertainty, and anxiety all comes flooding back. But armed with hope and a team of excellent doctors, I think it's now time to bring back the bar of low expectation, to be realistic about what's going on, but keep living every day, moment to moment, with presence and love. Thank you.